operate in truth, right? Operate in truth. Tell the truth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Gator Truth. I'm Daniel, and on this episode, we're going to take a look at the Gators' upcoming trip to Death Valley to take on the LSU Tigers. Now, in the preseason, I really did think that Florida should start, and I still believe Florida has the talent to start 4-0. Now, granted, we lost last week. I still think the talent is there to pull off this win. I do think most of the things I said about concerns about LSU, I think those have kind of shown themselves a little bit. Jury's still out on Miami. We'll see how that goes. But after this week, we'll know a little bit more. But with that said, of course, the Gators have their own issues. Lost to USF at home last weekend, and that is not a good loss for a team in year 4, in the year that everyone was building up and saying, this is the year. Hey, you got to give Napier one more year because this is the year he's been going for it. This is when he has all his guys. And then out the gate, you lose to a directional school. Now, that's not to discredit USF, but there's a reason why, if you're pointing to this is the year you can make a run at things, you don't lose that game. But enough about that. We'll talk about some keys I believe that the Gators need to do to take on LSU and come out with a victory. There are some things that, of course, we can look at, such as the return of Caleb Banks at defensive tackle, that may actually make a little bit more of a difference with the squad. With that said, let's go ahead and hop into it. And as we do, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button. And then also subscribe. We hit a great 350. Of course, you know the goal is 500. Now, I would love to get up to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. But with that said, just even getting to 500, I think, during the season is a lofty goal. I also thank everyone listening wherever you get your podcast. Really blows my mind when I actually see how many people do check this out through the different forms of media. And I know there may be some LSU people who watch this, even if it's just a comment and talk a load of smack, feel free to do so. I will still stand on what I say. And you know what? If we win, great. I do think we still have the talent there to win. If we don't, it is what it is. And nowhere you're coming in. I love when people try and come into the preview videos and troll. Like, I think there's a USF guy on the USF preview. This didn't age well. And it's like, nope, it didn't. All right. Thanks for the view. Which I enjoyed, whatever. Most listeners know I'm not going to come in here and take too many shots at other teams, especially when we've not done well consistently ourselves. But with that said, let's talk about the Gators against LSU on offense. My first key, same key I had last week against USF, and that's run the ball. And of course, we talked about the first drive against USF last week. Baugh had 10 yards per carry, and kind of after that drive, kind of had a mixed bag about whether he got the ball or not, and it was really kind of frustrating. So I added this to it for this week. That's run the ball and keep doing it. At some point, you just got to go with a hot hand. Billy Napier talked about going the hot hand, and it's like, well, when he's not starting the second half and we've not been great in our, last 4 minutes of the first half, first 4 minutes of the second half, middle 8 in general under Billy Napier, maybe have your best players on the field when you come out of halftime. But, that's just, some people would say that's a minor gripe. Some people would say, no, that makes a lot of sense. Have your best players out there when you have a chance to extend the lead to 2 scores like we had. But anyways, Jaden Baugh, your best running back. I do think Jackson will get it going as well, but keep that going. Just like last week, I want to see improved blocking from the offensive line and the tight end, especially at that right tackle position, but also saw some key holds and whatnot that kind of messed up the team last week and can't be happening. We'll talk about penalties in just a minute, but for now, we've got to continue to see that this offensive line was supposed to be the strength. I mean, we've got a returning All-American at center. You've got a returning All-SEC 4-year starter now, Austin Barber at left tackle, Damian George, second year at guard, third year in the system at right guard and left guard. You have Harris. So really should be, and that's a returning starter. Really should be much better than what we've seen. Should have been able to push around USF. Now, some of the problems are if you're playing, as many people have said, in a phone booth, and what they mean by that is you're playing 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, 1 running back, and you basically make a 7-man offensive line with your 2 tight ends. Well, you're bringing in an 8-man box, 9-man box potentially, and you're trying to run, well, you're kind of outnumbered, especially depending on how the team lines up. You got to find ways to get your guys space to run, and some of that is blocking, but then some of that's, hey, we got to scheme this a little bit better. For my next, for the next offensive key, I would say you got to hit the mid-range throws. And I'm not going to be as down on DJ Lagway as some have been. I saw the word bust floating around on X, and I think that's just ridiculous. I mean, he hasn't been fully healthy this year, and here we're going to say he's a bust because he's not fully healthy. There have been some drops, and then, it's been talked about plenty. This is not the most QB-friendly offense anyways. I mean, last year, some of his greatness was making throws that overcame some of the limitations of the offense. Now, there are other things he's in control of, like there were some checkdowns last week that if he hits it, like some mid-range throws, then the offense maybe stays on the field. So he's got to take advantage of that. Doesn't always have to go for the deep ball, maybe hit some in the middle, but we also have to have more wide open in the middle range throws so it becomes a part of his game. And then also, and this goes for everyone on the offense, take advantage when the opportunities arise. And what I'm talking about last week, we saw drops when there's opportunity for big plays, whether it's in the end zone by the tight end Livingston or, at the end of the game. I think Vernell Brown should have been able to come down on that long throw with the ball. Again, both these possibly tough catches, but you're a receiver at the University of Florida. You got to come down with those. You got to make the big plays. And then, again, with it, taking advantage of opportunities. I've talked about this is a LSU team that has replaced basically their entire starting defensive line. Go listen to my why a 4-0 start is possible, or why the Gators should start 4-0 video, and I really talk about that in detail. But you've also got a guy in Pyburn who knows our offense and will probably help scout team. But on the other side of that is we've got players that know his game. And maybe we take advantage of that and run towards his tackle if there's something we know. But we'll see. Also, we talked about, as we're talking about hitting the mid-range throws, take advantage of opportunities when they arise. This is an LSU team that was 80-something in passing last year. There's going to be opportunities. They've replaced a lot of people through the portal, but it's still early in the season. That part hasn't changed. 3 games in, it hasn't changed that. These are a bunch of new players in the secondary still getting used to each other and still getting used to this defense. There's an opportunity for the Gators there. And just gotta try and take advantage. I know week 1 was scary. They took down Clemson in Clemson's Death Valley, but then last week the Orange Tigers turned around and get into a slap fight with Troy. I think they're down 10-0 at one point. I believe I watched on my phone for a little bit. And I bring that up because they also had a bit of a struggle last week, LSU did. And so it's not that it's not possible for us to, go in and have some offensive success. And, we will see. But yeah, LSU last week, Louisiana Tech, 23-7. Not really the best game. But with that said, let's go ahead. Let's take a look at the defense. And the first thing I have is pressure. Nussmeier. He's not been great so far in 2025. What I mean by that is for a guy last year, I think we talked about he had almost 4,000 yards or something crazy, or maybe he did have 4,000 yards last season. This year, so far, he has 469 yards. That's an average of 235 about. And yeah, that's a lot lower pace than he had. Now, that doesn't mean he can't come alive, and there are things Gators are going to have to do to make sure that doesn't happen. But really, he's got a tight end out. And we talked about how, they lost their best tight end in the history of LSU football when they lost Mason Taylor last year. But now you've got one tight end out. You've got these new receivers he's still adjusting to. You've got to take advantage. If you get pressure, that's only going to be, that's only going to favor the Gators. And the Gators have been kind of mixed on whether they get pressure or not. I will say part of the benefit of this game is you have Caleb Banks back from injury. He's not played yet in 2025. Him getting that inside pressure will help. I've seen, and I'd have to go back and look at exactly who's done it, but we've had lineups where we've had defensive ends or guys that would be at the outside linebacker type position coming inside and kind of taking into the defensive tackle role. And part of that is just the, trying to get talent in there while Caleb Banks is not in there. So that's one hope I have, is that the return of Caleb Banks will help this D-line force more pressure, and more pressure could cause more opportunities for turnovers, really set up this defense for a great time. Of course, the defense, I said the other day, I really don't fully blame the defense for the touchdown they gave up, because they're waiting for a play call to be in, and we'll get to that in just a second. The first 3 points, that's that was on a sub that we really shouldn't have done. And then also 2 points on the safety, in my opinion, and you can have your own. The defense really gave up 6 points. However, those 6 points that they gave up, again, without a stupid penalty or without not being ready or special teams issue, they gave up, the 2 field goals. But one was at the end of the first half, and I talked about the Gators needing to be better in the middle 8, the last 4 of the first half, first 4 of the second half. They gave up one there. And then, of course, at the end of the game, they allowed that big, long drive, and part of that was just stupid penalties. There was a very bad mishold, but there was also opportunity, besides the mishold, to get the tackle. So I can't really say, oh my gosh, we're totally screwed. Well, if everyone did what they needed to do, then that missed penalty isn't as big of a deal. But anyways, I said I don't fully blame them for that touchdown. Number 2 key is be ready for the hurry up offense. Team saw USF exploit it. I believe it's Gator Nation football podcast that said something like they counted 7 or 8 times the ball was snapped and we didn't appear ready, and we got away with it a few times. And of course we didn't on the touchdown pass. Yeah, it's been an issue for years in Gainesville for us not being ready or taking forever to get play, and we can't be doing that anymore. Coaches need to step up, and if that means forcing your players to know what to do, you need to step up and force those players to know what to do, no more looking at the sidelines as the ball is snapped. If you do that, there's a chance that we really, really lower the amount of points that this LSU team, could score. I believe we might be one of the best, if not the best, defenses LSU has faced if we're ready to go. And if we're not having stupid penalties. And LSU right now, I believe, is averaging 20 points a game. And 20 points a game. And if we can hold them to around 21, even 28, that's still an opportunity that you really should have a shot to win the game. Now, of course, some of the questions are on offense, but this has not been an explosive offense so far. And so it's time for us to try with Caleb Banks back, and we need to really do a better job getting that pressure, which is number one, and also not make the mistakes we saw last week, number two, and that's not being ready for the hurry up. I imagine other teams are going to try and hurry up just to see if they can get Florida now. And then finally, I have solid run D. LSU has not been great on the ground so far, at least in their, their main running game. I say main because they've got like a wide receiver who has 9 carries for 80 yards, one of which was a 48-yard carry. They've got one running back who's had 7 carries for 57 yards. I don't know when those carries happen. But with that said, their main running back, Caden Durham, has 30 carries on the year, 103 yards with a long of 24. And if you've listened to this podcast for years, you know sometimes I like to take out for a game or for longer. If we take out the one run, how are you really doing? And with that, one long run, he's still averaging 3.4 yards per carry. What that tells me is there is still a little bit of concern on this with this LSU defensive or offensive line, which is something I saw coming into the year. And this is something the Gators need to take advantage of, not just in the run game, but in the pass game as well. They even have one of their starters who is going to play, but there was some injury worry, and maybe he's not 100%. Take advantage of that. That's not saying play dirty or saying hurt him, but if a guy's not 100%, there's a good chance you can take advantage of that and get a good play. Maybe you can beat him on a speed rush, get around him in a way you couldn't if he were 100%, or on a bull rush, pushing through him with power. Try and take advantage of that mismatch. But if you can get pressure on us and have the solid run D against this LSU offense that hasn't run the ball well, at least in their traditional running back game so far, you're going to do a great job of giving this offense a chance. If you can hold this offense, like I said, up to 28 points, that's still pretty good in the SEC. I do think that this defense could hold LSU to 17 points or less. And with that said, it's something like if you can hold them to 17 points or less, there's no reason why the Gators should lose this game. And and just, for the record, last year, we held them to 16 points. And that was arguably a better, and more experienced LSU team. Granted, that was on the road. This will be at home for them. But you also have a thing like the brand new offensive line, brand new defensive line. 4 out of the 5 top receivers are new or, left after last year. This is a chance for the Gators, and also is later in the season after they figured everything out, where although we haven't figured everything out yet, we've got more continuity and they've got more to figure out. So again, I said this weeks ago, I'll say it again. This is an opportunity that the Gators have to take, to take advantage and get the upset here in Baton Rouge. And then finally, some things from the team. Of course, I kept on the few penalties. 11 penalties last week was ridiculous. That can't happen again. I really, really am torn about whether I want to see Bet on the field this week or not after costing his team the game. Granted, there were other things, but that did not help at all for something as ridiculous as spitting, especially 2 days after it became a national story when Jalen Carter did that in the NFL opener. And also, I don't want to see special teams flags or special teams mess ups. Because, again, things that cost us last week. We snapped the ball over a guy's head, 2 points. Well, what was the margin of victory? 2 points. What can we put that to? Literally another special teams gaffe in the Billy Napier era. That can't happen anymore. I want to see the intensity and focus. I, mentioned how there are people and commenters that said Florida didn't look like they were prepared, didn't think they wanted to be there. Well, competition is higher this week than it was last week. You've got to pick that up. You've got to show us. If you like your coach, you've got to show us that you want to win for him. Show up looking prepared. Show up playing intensely. There's one thing to play a game close and lose and not do anything stupid and the other team's just better that day. There's another thing versus what we saw last week when the offensive line couldn't block, a smaller defensive line at times, or when we'd see missed throws, or on defense when we're not ready. Granted, that's mostly mostly on the coaching. However, there is a lot of that to go for the players, at least not keeping an eye on what's going on with the opposing team. And so just got to have that focus, got to have that intensity. And then I also kept this one. Like, this slide is the same from last week, but it's because so many times in these games, big return on a kickoff or punt can be a big momentum boost. And maybe it's also a fake. How many times in the Florida LSU rivalry in the last 15 years have we seen LSU with like a fake kick or fake punt or, something? Or, I believe it was 2015 where we're not doing too hot, can't get the running game going, but somehow we're still in it because Antonio Callaway returns a punt for a touchdown. And granted, at one point, I think it was at the end of the first half, we allow a long touchdown play instead of securing a sack. But point is, in that game, it could have turned and probably should have turned on a big kickoff or punt return. We've seen that. We saw last week our only touchdown was after a big one. We also have a penalty, gets us to 20, and we score on the 20-yard drive, where other times we got inside the 20, couldn't get into the end zone. So definitely a key I want to see. And I want to see a big kick return as well. But either way, it's going to be interesting. This is a game and that I do believe the Gators can win. Now, can and probability, if they show up looking like they did against USF, Florida's losing by 2 touchdowns at least. If they show up looking, have that intensity and focus, and they're trying to do things, and we kind of stay with Jaden Baugh, and maybe on defense, Caleb Banks does make a difference. Maybe we don't have any errors where we're not ready to go, and we play solid defense every single play because everyone's ready, knows the play. Well, this is a game I really think Florida could potentially pull out. And I've said to some people on X this week, this is the type of game that Florida would definitely win, because it seems like in the Billy Napier era, we'll have horrendous losses and then somehow pull out a ridiculous win. Now, Billy Napier has not beaten a team that's finished with a winning record on the road at all. And now he's going to one of the most hostile, road environments there is. Night in Death Valley and Baton Rouge. And it'll be a fun time. Can't wait to get there. There's not really much like tailgating in Baton Rouge. The fans will pull you into one tailgate and pretty much be like, try our food. We've got the best food. And the next tailgate over will be like, no. We've got the best food, and kind of pull you over to them. And all the food is amazing. I love their different Cajun, dishes or whatnot, and they do. And then there's some pretty good talking football, but every once in a while you get the LSU fan that just wants to tell you how great LSU is and how terrible everyone else is. And half the time those people are 3 sheets to the wind and you don't really want to deal with them anyways. But I really do love the LSU trip. Can't wait to do it again this weekend. With that said, if the Gators can do what I think they can do, I will have the Gators at a 24-21 victory over the Tigers. Now, I could also see Florida losing this one, but I'm going to pick the 24-21 win, because it's something that just the way things go up and down with Billy Napier seems to make sense. B, I'm not fully sold on LSU yet, and maybe I will be after the game. Maybe they go out and they score 63 points and win like 63-10. I don't think so, but I'm not fully sold yet. I think this is a good opportunity for Florida, to really focus in. I know Dave Waters on Gators Breakdown said he didn't want to hear this, but the back against the wall mentality. Maybe we see that back against the wall mentality, and the Gators, pull off the win in Baton Rouge. Like I said, I'm going to pick the Gators doing the 24-21 win. And yeah, that's it. But before we get out of here, definitely, once again, if you're on YouTube, like this video, comment on the video. I want to know what your score predictions are. And then also, please subscribe. Heck, if you just want to subscribe, and let's say you're an LSU fan in here just to troll, subscribe, watch my picks every week, troll my picks every week. I'm not just talking here. I release 5-game picks on Saturday mornings. We'll see what time I get these ones out, whether I do the picks in New Orleans or wait till I get to Baton Rouge. But with that said, I'm currently going, I think I'm 6-4 on the year. Always someone has a weird upset that I don't see coming, like Alabama losing to FSU. But that's the fun of college football. And it's a very fun year for college football, even if sometimes it's not fun being a Gator. With that said, thank you all for listening. And as always, go Gators.